This from Ben in Alexandria to open up the show. Ben writes, Kevin, been listening to you since moving into the DC area in 2022. I'm a diehard Dallas fan, but love listening to the deep weeds conversations that only real fans have. I, like you and many of your listeners, miss the old name. It's never felt the same since the change, even for a rival fan. Not the reason for writing you, though. The reason is I think Scott Turner seemed to like Drake May more than Jaden Daniels, but wouldn't say it. Thank you for that, Ben in Old Town. We'll play what Scott Turner said about this in a moment. I do want to just start with this, though. I hear this all the time from Cowboy, Eagle, and Giant fans. And I think it's the same way I would feel if they changed their names and uniforms, the whole thing. It wouldn't seem the same. If the Redskins were playing, the Roughnecks, the Dallas Roughnecks, it just wouldn't seem the same in different uniforms. I mean, there's a certain level of heritage and brand attachment to all of these brands in the NFC East that we've all had. So I get that, Ben, and I hear that all the time. So I think Ben is right. I think Scott actually does like Drake May a little bit more than Jaden Daniels. But I'm wondering how he got that from the conversation that I had with Scott Turner. This was from my podcast on Friday, but we played this section of the show yesterday, and it wasn't a long, a topic of conversation on Drake May and Jaden Daniels, but I asked him first to give me his, initial reaction on what he thinks of Jaden Daniels. Baller, yeah, for sure. I know you liked Jaden coming out. I also know that you liked Drake May a lot coming out, and there is a debate, Scott, among Skins fans and maybe even NFL fans to a certain degree with Drake May in the Super Bowl. Did New England actually get it right? Or did Washington get it right? Between those two, it's pretty early, I would think, to kind of come up with an answer to that. But do you have an early opinion one way or the other?
I mean, either guy is good. They're both really good players. I mean, obviously Drake May had such a good year this year. Jaden Daniels was unbelievable. I mean, he covered up so much for that team the year before, and he just, he had some injuries, and he's gonna, and I don't think it was his play style, but part of that as you grow in the league is learning how to take care of yourself and what you can and can't do. And I think he's a good enough player, and he has a great instinct, he'll figure that out. But that's going to be the Drake May, Jaden Daniels. People are going to be arguing about that on Cricket Sports Talk Radio for 15 years.
I think, wasn't there one more thing where I asked him about Caleb Williams? What about Caleb Williams being a part of that debate?
Yeah, big fan of his as well. I mean, you're talking about, what a great draft class that was,
All right. Listening back to it again, I think I get where Ben's coming from this perspective. He kind of talks about protecting himself. He's going to learn how to protect himself, that kind of thing. Maybe that led Ben to thinking that Scott liked Drake May. Let me just tell you something. I know that Scott liked Drake May a lot. I think he liked him a lot last year when he came out. But I don't think that it's at the expense of not liking Jaden Daniels a lot. Do I think if I could have just asked him, if you were drafting and you had the choice, who would you have taken? I don't know if he would have given me the answer. I think he would have just said you couldn't go wrong with either one of them, which was kind of the answer he gave anyway. But I do think that the conversation that so many have had with Drake May's season this year, a potential MVP season, the question, at least now, leading into a Super Bowl in which Drake May is one of the two starting quarterbacks in his second year, is worth having. If you were to redraft 2024 from a Washington perspective, who do you take? Caleb Williams is off the board. So it's either Jaden Daniels or Drake May. You're certainly not going to take J.J. McCarthy on a redraft at this point. Doesn't mean that 10 years from now, if we did the same thing, you might not take J.J. McCarthy. It's way too early to close the book on anybody just because of his, borderline wretched start. I mean, part of it is injury. You're certainly not going to take Michael Penix Jr. Of the 6 quarterbacks taken, he's the one that had the injury history coming into the pros. And already in year 2, and it's not even a full year of being the starting quarterback, as of the Atlanta Falcons, another serious injury. And I don't think anybody's going to take Bo Nix. Bo Nix is fine. It's kind of, the beneficiary, I think, of a very good offensive play caller and coordinator for sure, who happens to be the head coach. So with Caleb Williams gone at number 1, who would you take at number 2? Redrafting Jaden Daniels or Drake May? I'll give you my answer and the reasons for it in a few minutes. I want yours at 301-230-0980. On the show today, by the way, Jordan Dajani from CBS Sports will jump on with us at noon. We'll do what we did, last week, I think, with a guest or two, not only look at free agency, but look ahead to the draft. We'll get his Super Bowl thoughts as well. Plenty of Super Bowl trivia on the show today. We did one segment of it yesterday. We'll do at least 2 today. So you'll have a chance to answer 3 Super Bowl trivia questions. But I want to start the show with this. What do you got? So college football announced their schedule for next year's playoff. And it really is something that has to be fixed. The college football playoff in 2026-2027, the schedule goes like this. You're going to have your first round games on that second Saturday of December. So we're talking about December 16th and 17th, the Friday night and the Saturday, which will be the Thursday night and Friday, which the Friday night and Saturday, which will be the 18th, 17th and 18th. My fault. December 17th and 18th. Let me get that straight. December 17th and 18th next year will be the first round games, one on Friday night and then the triple header on Saturday, probably up against NFL games. We'll see. And then the quarterfinal round next year, because New Year's Eve, December 31st, falls on a Thursday, which is an NFL night. And by the way, it will be an NFL Week 17. There's still another week after this particular season. So there will be a Thursday night game. It's not Week 18. It's Week 17. So they are going to hold one quarterfinal game on Wednesday night, December 30th at the Fiesta Bowl. And then they will hold on Friday, January 1st, the other 3 quarterfinal games at the Cotton Bowl, the Peach Bowl, and the Rose Bowl. So the teams that play on Wednesday, December 30th, the winner of that game will have an extra 2 days to prepare for the semifinals. And then you will get the college football playoff semifinals on January 14th and 15th, a Thursday night and a Friday night, and the championship game on January 25th. That is literally 2 months following the final regular season weekend of the college football season, which is Thanksgiving weekend, which is the 26th is Thanksgiving. So you'll have games on the 27th and 28th. And then nearly a month later, you will get the championship game. Now, part of this is because we have a later schedule next year because Labor Day is late next year. It's on September 7th. So the NFL season next year, the week 1 game won't be until September 13th. Mark it down on your calendars right now. September 13th will be week 1. The first game will be a Thursday night, September 10th game. And by the way, because Labor Day is late, That Friday night game that we've watched from Brazil the last couple of years, I don't think can be played per the FCC rules because it's a full-fledged college football weekend already. It would be week 2 at that point, and they're not allowed to play Friday night against high schools, Saturdays against colleges per the TV rules from 1961 or whatever it was. So I don't think that Rio game, the Brazil game, will be that Friday night following the Thursday night kickoff game. I don't know when it'll be. Have no idea. Something just to keep in mind because Washington could be in that Brazil game. But here's the easy answer to this. They've got to start the playoff earlier. They have to start the playoff much earlier. And that means they have to start the playoff Army-Navy weekend. The Army-Navy game is scheduled in 2026 for December 12th. December 12th, Saturday, is the standalone Army-Navy game and then the Heisman Trophy, at night. And the NFL has sometimes played games on that day, but really that's week 14. So they're not going to be playing on that day on Saturday. I don't believe they might. The Army-Navy game has been so sacred to the sport, but it is really inhibiting and preventing a logical schedule. Play the Army-Navy game on like the Friday night before that Saturday and kick off the playoff on Saturday a week earlier. That's the answer here, is that you go from Thanksgiving weekend to the following Saturday, which is Conference Championship Saturday, all right, and Friday night. And then the following weekend, they have a wide open Saturday, except for Army-Navy. I like Army-Navy. I've been to the Army-Navy game a few times. It is a spectacle, and it's a phenomenal tradition in American sports. Play it on the Friday night, or even start it much earlier in the day. So instead of playing it on December 12th as a standalone, play it on December 12th, kick it off at 11 a.m. as the entree into a triple header of playoff games that start at 2:30. 2:30, 6, and 9:15. You've got your 3 triple header games, and you play one of those quarter first round games on Friday night, which is what they've been doing. You can't let a full Saturday go by with one football game when you've got this playoff ready to begin. Because if you start it then you get the semifinals on New Year's Day. That makes a lot more sense. You get the quarterfinals the next weekend, and you get the semifinals on New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. And if the NFL is playing on New Year's Eve, I understand you don't want to go head-to-head with the NFL. And then you get your college championship game January 10th, January 11th, not January 25th. I'm sacrificing Army-Navy as a standalone game for the betterment of the college football playoff schedule. It just makes too much sense. But for whatever reason, college football has been very hesitant to touch and, have a conflict with Army-Navy. I just don't think that, it should be the standalone only game. You got a full Saturday. Remember what that Saturday is. That's like the first Saturday. You don't have any football except Army-Navy. There's a bunch of college basketball games that don't matter being played. And the Heisman Trophy ceremony, which means very little anymore in terms of the ratings it gets, kind of, finishes off the night. And then you get the NFL on Sunday and Monday night. It is interesting, though, that college football just didn't messing around with the NFL if they don't have to. And so they're going to play a playoff game, a quarterfinal game on a Wednesday night to avoid the NFL on Thursday night, December 31st. By the way, with this schedule next year, and we'll get into this much more when the mock schedule comes out, but in all seriousness, because you get, the holidays next year, on a Thursday, Friday, Christmas Eve on a Thursday, Christmas Day on a Friday. That weekend I think you'll get a game on Christmas Eve night. It's a Thursday night. It's an Amazon night. So they've never shied away from Christmas Eve day or Christmas Eve night games. The NFL hasn't. Now we know that they'll take over Christmas Day as well. So next year, Christmas Eve on a Thursday night, you'll get a game on Thursday night, Christmas Eve. Christmas Day, you'll get a triple header. Then that Saturday, December 26th, you'll get another slew of probably a doubleheader NFL games. Then you'll get the full Sunday slate. It won't be a full slate because you will have already played 4, 5, 6 games at that point. And then it'll end with Monday Night Football on December 28th. That'll be one hell of a weekend. But I think college football is, John Oran told us last week that people watched the Miami-Indiana championship game, and this idea of out of sight, out of mind is way overrated. And that's fair, because I'll tell you what, it wasn't out of sight, out of mind for me as a college football fan. I couldn't wait for Indiana-Miami, even though I had to wait 11 days for it. But you're now talking about January 25th. That's 2 months removed from the end of the regular season. That's not really good scheduling. And the real bottleneck and the real opportunity is that first weekend following championship weekend. That's when they should play it. That should be the first round. And then you actually really do benefit from a bye, because everybody else is playing 1 week after their final regular season, their championship games, if you don't have a bye. And then if you do have a bye, you actually get a 2-week rest rather than a 3-week rest, which is what it is now. This is into the weeds of conversation. I get it. But I saw this schedule and I'm like, wow, they've got to do something about this. January 25th, the championship game. And allowing a first-round playoff game to be played 2 days before the other 3 games. Whoever wins that game has a real advantage, rest-wise, heading into their semifinal game. And the semifinals don't come until the 14th and 15th next year. The 14th and the 15th of January. All right, back to Drake May versus Jaden Daniels. So, I most of you know I'm a big Jaden Daniels guy. Coming out, I was a big Jaden Daniels guy, and I'm still a big Jaden Daniels guy. I don't even look at some of the numbers that are out there with respect to this past season. Why? Because they're irrelevant to me. He played 4 football games start to finish out of 17. He played in 7 total out of 17. In almost every single game he played in, the team was significantly compromised. This was one of those years you chalk up to really bad luck, injury-wise, hard to evaluate. I don't think it was that hard to evaluate the defense overall, and that's where the emphasis has to be. But to me, it's like he played 52 out of 54 games in college. He played 20 out of 20 in his rookie season in the NFL, even though there was a rib injury and there were, bumps and bruises along the way, as there are with every player, including quarterbacks. Last year was the aberration. I know it sparked renewed concern about his injury, prospects moving forward. And a lot of that is based on the body type. We know that. The body type is definitely one of those body types you look at and you're like, it looks breakable. And he doesn't do the best job of protecting himself, especially in key situations. So is this going to be what we have to deal with in the future? I'm not ready to say that because, again, 52 out of 54 college games and 20 out of 20 in the NFL. I mean, the 17 regular season games, and then he did play in 3 postseason games. I am still team Jaden Daniels. I would pick Jaden Daniels if we redrafted right now number 2 if Caleb Williams went number 1? And that's the question. I don't want to bring Caleb Williams into the conversation here because it's so much more about Drake May because he's in the Super Bowl and he had an MVP caliber season. And he was on the board when Washington selected Jaden Daniels. Caleb Williams was not. So we're redrafting, but we're redrafting from number 2 on. So who would you take and why? 301-230-0980. So I think the answer ultimately will be 3, 4, 5 years down the road when it makes much more sense to have this conversation. I think it's going to be a conversation that is an either or. It's a 50-50 coin flip because I think they're both going to be great. I think Drake May has a lot of the qualities that make a great quarterback. He's got good size. He can really throw the football. He is athletic and really good off schedule. His decision-making has been really good at times, but against the better defenses, not so good. I still think Drake May has to process quickly or quicker. There are a lot of times where you've watched him during this postseason and even during the regular season at times where the ball does get held a little bit too long and it results in sacks. And in this postseason against 3 really good defensive teams, the best defensive teams he's faced all year, except for Cleveland, but Cleveland didn't have any offense. He's been, unimpressive in terms of protecting the football until Vrabel took the ball out of his hands in the AFC Championship game. But even with the subpar results from Drake May during this postseason, I still saw him make some big-time plays. The 3 touchdown passes against Houston were all excellent throws, big-time throws, the first one coming on a 4th down. The touchdown pass to clinch it up 21-16 to make it 28-16 was a ridiculous throw. It was also a great catch in the end zone by Kayshon Boutte. All right, but that was a perfect throw. But there was a lot of uncertainty. Am I seeing what I'm seeing? Holding on to the ball, not protecting it, but playing really good defensive football teams. New England has been defensive-led in the postseason, and to a certain degree, running game-led, because they ran the ball at the end of the Houston game after they had worn down the Houston defense because it had been out there too much because of their offense. And the same thing with Denver's defense. That drive to start the third quarter was almost all running plays with the exception of the flea flicker, which was the only productive pass play of the day. With that said, Drake May made so many plays in the AFC Championship game with his legs. I like Drake May a lot more than I did when he was coming out. I didn't dislike him. I liked him. I thought he was incredibly talented. To me, I remember a lot of the comparisons with Sam Howell, and I said, this dude's not Sam Howell. This is a big, strong, strapping guy, for sure. I just didn't like him as much as I like Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams, for that matter, or Penix Jr. I like Penix Jr. more than I liked May coming out. I did in terms of a thrower of the football. But I really like Drake May. The schedule was easy. All of that stuff is true. It doesn't matter. Watch him play, and he can do this. But he's got a lot of growth to come. Holding on to the ball against pressure, especially in this postseason, he hasn't been very good. Protecting the ball. By the way, protecting himself. While he wasn't knocked out of games or plural, he took a lot of big shots, especially early in the season. He took 47 sacks in the regular season, and there were multiple games in the first half of the season where he had 4 or more sacks taken. 4 against Vegas in the opener, 5 against Pittsburgh in a game which he, also turned the ball over. 4 against Buffalo. Back-to-back games against 2 good defensive teams, Cleveland and Atlanta, where he took 6 sacks in each of those 2 games. And then we saw in the postseason 15 sacks in 3 games he's taken. Fumbled 6 times, lost 3 of them, and thrown 2 interceptions. Although, to be fair, one of those interceptions was an end of the half Hail Mary. I like both of them. I would take Jaden. I'm not really into comparing Jaden's, 24 season to Drake May's 25. That seems to be a lot of what you guys want to do. And if you're doing that, well, then you would definitely take Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels strapped a very, very average to less than average team to his back and led them to a conference championship game. I mean, the 2 seasons, Jaden wasn't an MVP finalist because of the incredible seasons that Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow had. Drake May had a very good regular season, but, there weren't, other than Stafford, there weren't otherworldly quarterback seasons. He was excellent, don't get me wrong. But if you're going to give me Jaden Daniels in 24, Drake May in 25, I'm taking Jaden Daniels in 24. He had a much lesser team. And then in the postseason, yeah, he didn't get to the Super Bowl, but it wasn't because of him. And Drake May's in the Super Bowl, and it's not because of him necessarily. But that's really not the way to look at it. You look at the two players, you look at what they do well, you look at where they need to improve, and you project. My projection right now, my gut is that they're both going to be really good, elite level quarterbacks in the NFL for the next decade. But I'd take Jaden Daniels. I think Jaden's playmaking ability is so elite with his legs and his arms and his arm. And Drake May's up there too. I just think that I'd take Daniels. I would. I'm not saying Josh McDaniel can't do a lot of the same things, and he's got a bigger body, and he probably can withstand the punishment, and that's a good argument for Drake May moving forward, if you really believe that Jaden's vulnerable to that. Drake May also had the most wide-open receivers in the NFL this year, per DVOA in a stat they have. In terms of wide-open receivers, New England led the league by miles, and that's Josh McDaniels more than anything else. And by the way, pretty good route runners in Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry, Demario Douglas, etc. I think they're both going to be great quarterbacks. You can have that view. Both can be true. But if we're redrafting 2024, I'm still taking Jaden Daniels. I'm taking Jaden Daniels because I think that his processing, I think his release, I think his playmaking ability is truly elite level, otherworldly stuff. And I think Drake Mays is outstanding too, but I would take Jaden Daniels. 301-230-0980. No Caleb Williams is an option. Drake May or Jaden Daniels. We're redrafting 24. Who are you taking and why? Max will give us his answer. I want yours at 301-230-0980. Kevin Sheehan Show. This Sunday, Redfin is kicking off an even bigger game during the big game. They are giving away $1 million home in an epic, never-been-done-before scavenger hunt, all on the Redfin app. Watch closely. The home is hidden in Rocket and Redfin's commercial during the big game. The winner will be the first to solve 6 clues and find the $1 million home on the Redfin app. Download or update the app to play Redfin's Great American Home Search presented by Rocket. The question is, you're redrafting 2024. Caleb Williams is gone. You're in Washington's position at number 2. By the way, let me add, because already my friend Ted texted me to say, can I trade back? No, we're picking Drake May or Jaden Daniels at number 2. Who's the selection and why? Mine is Jaden Daniels. I still think the looking back to Jaden's, performance last year in the regular season or the playoffs versus Drake May's. Let me just tell you, it's not really that close to me in terms of the playoffs. The 3 games Jaden played, he had no defense, and he had limitations in terms of playmakers on offense. Drake May has one of the best defenses right now in the postseason. Not to mention, Washington faced Tampa on the road, faced Detroit, the 1 seed, on the road, and then faced the best team in football, Philadelphia, on the road, and probably had more success offensively against Philadelphia, Jaden in particular, than anybody else did during the postseason. New England's had a home game against a banged-up Chargers team at home, a Houston team at home that was very limited at quarterback that day, and at wide receiver, and at tight end. Their best wide receiver not playing, their best tight end not playing, and then got a backup quarterback who was dreadful in a 10-7 AFC championship game where the coach literally took the ball out of Drake May's hands and said, we're not going to allow you or anybody else on offense to lose this game, which was brilliant strategy. And I'm not suggesting to you that if Denver had been more potent offensively, that New England couldn't have answered with better offense. They just didn't have to. Washington had to answer everything with offense throughout the entire regular season and throughout the entire postseason last year. Everything that they did that was successful happened because of what they did on offense, led by Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels had a much higher completion percentage than Drake May had in the 3 playoff games. If we're going to do this, okay, he had fewer turnovers. He had, a better passer rating. He had a better yards per completion number. What's interesting is actually rushing totals in the playoffs. Drake May in his 3 games, 6 yards ahead of where Jaden was, although Jaden had some massive rushing plays. Go back to the Tampa game on that final drive, but so did Drake May. Drake May had some huge runs. I'm actually, one of the things I think we could see on Sunday, Max, is Drake May lead the Patriots in rushing again and maybe lead the entire game in rushing. Give me some prop bets odds on Drake May leading all rushers in the Super Bowl. And the reason I say that is New England's going to put this game on Sam Darnold. They're not going to let Kenneth Walker rush for 120 yards. They are going to load up the box. They're going to stop the run, and they're going to say, Sam, let's see you do it against our defense. Let's see you do it against our corners and our secondary, because that's not what they faced against the Rams. This is a much better secondary. All right, my answer is Jaden Daniels. The one concern, let me just mention this because I didn't mention it. I do have a concern that Jaden, even though he has played 52 of 54 in college, 20 of 20 his rookie year, and this past season was the aberration for him as a football player, not the norm. I do worry about, will he stay healthy, or will it be a Lamar Jackson situation or a Joe Burrow situation? Quarterbacks get hurt. He's not the only one. But is it going to be a Lamar Jackson situation where, every other year he's missing 3, 4, 5, 6 games or more. Missed, basically 13 games last year, 10, in total, but 13 in terms of start to finish. That does worry me. Drake may take some big shots too and did early in the season, but he's got a bigger frame. He's a big dude, no doubt. I like both of them. I think they're both going to be great. I think they're both going to be elite level, tier 1 quarterbacks for the majority of their careers. I would take Jaden because I think the electric playmaking ability is really right there with Lamar, going back in the day to Vic and others. And I think in this age of you've got to be excellent as a playmaker and you put fear into defenses' hearts and minds when you have the ability to run for 70 yards on a given play. I'll take Jaden. 301-230-0980. Max, your answer is what?
My answer is I can't. I can't go against the hometown kid. It's Jaden Daniels. Just because I think that upside is a little bit higher. We've used him a little bit more in the quarterback rush game, that I think Drake May would translate well into. But Jaden's just, I feel like Jaden's so much faster, and I feel like Drake May can throw that ball a mile, but Jaden puts it right where his receiver needs it to be. Like Terry going up and getting it. I've seen it time and again over these last 2 years. So yeah, I'm sticking with our boy Jaden Daniels.
In terms of throwing the football, which by the way is kind of the number one job of a quarterback, even though the game has changed, Jaden's mechanics, Jaden's release, Jaden's accuracy, Jaden's deep ball, Jaden's short ball, Jaden's outside the hashes ball, Jaden's over the middle ball is every bit as good as any young quarterback in the game or any quarterback in the game, period. I mean, I think Stafford is elite as a thrower. We have some elite throwers of the football. Jaden's not that far away. I also think May throws it exceptionally well. I think he throws the deep ball exceptionally well with great touch, but we've seen that from JD5 too. There's no doubt that part of this is just he's mine right now. He's with my team right now, and I know what I watched in 2024. And all due respect to Drake May's 2025 season, which may end up being an MVP season, I don't know that it was better than Jaden Daniels' 2024 season. They had a lot of parallels in that, weak schedule, late wins, but New England just had a better football team, period, than Washington did. Just a much better supporting cast. Washington's issue in 2024, let's not confuse it. Washington wasn't playing poor defensive teams. They were playing poor offensive teams, which is what made their defensive performance even worse. They were facing all of these backup quarterbacks and even at times a third-string quarterback in New Orleans with, Spencer Rattler because they started Jake Haener in that game. Washington's offense faced the best defense in football 3 times, including twice over the last month of the regular season into the postseason, and rolled it offensively. He just faced 3 great defenses and was made to look very, very average to less than average, even though I would suggest he still made some big plays in some of these games. All right, your chance, 301-230-0980. We're going back to 2024. Washington's on the clock. Chicago just took Caleb Williams, and there are no trade opportunities, and we need a quarterback. Who are you taking, Jaden Daniels or Drake May? If you actually want to push a, Bo Nix or Penix Jr. or J.J. McCarthy, have at it, but I think the choice is obvious. Let's start with Anthony. Anthony, go ahead.
Damn, Kevin, you covered damn near everything.
Well, that's my job, Anthony. I'm trying to, but I left a lot on the bone, and you're usually smart enough to take advantage of it. So let's hear what you got.
So in all seriousness, it's, as you said, it's fair to say that Drake May had an infinitely better all-around team. Aside from splitting hairs, Jaden, and to me, Jaden is a better quarterback. Jaden is more accurate. Jaden is quicker. Jaden is Jaden processes faster. And again, you said it. Easier schedule. Let's see what New England does come next year. Well, come this year when they have to go against a first place schedule and better defenses. And also, since we fell back to Never Never Land a little bit, we're going to go back to an easier schedule and possibly weaker quarterbacks. So it's going to be, between the two, it's going to be an up and down battle until both teams are on relatively a par level with each other. That's the only way you're going to be able to actually give a 100% gauge of, okay, this one has the slight advantage over this one because of X, Y, and Z. But as you said, he's on my team, and I'm staying with him. If it had been the other way around, if we picked May, I'd probably be saying the same thing. So
yeah,
there you go.
If we had picked May, I'd feel great about having Drake May. There's no doubt. Like it's not an either or for me. It's an either or question that I'm asking you, and I answered myself. But in terms of big picture, for me, I think they're both going to be great. It seems to be, part of the conversation is one's going to be great, one isn't. No, more likely than not.
No.
The odds favor both of them being tremendous quarterbacks based on what we've seen through 2 seasons. In Jaden's case, 1 season, really. Can I just mention one thing, though, Anthony? The schedule next year for us is a third-place schedule. But we get the NFC West, and we don't know what that'll look like by the time we get there, but we have to play Seattle and the Rams at home, the 49ers on the road. We have games against Houston next year with that defense at home, Indy, who played really well at home, Joe Burrow in Cincinnati at home, Atlanta, who might be the favorite by the time we get to the regular season in the NFC South at home. We don't know what Minnesota will look like on the road. Jacksonville, we have to play away. The schedule, in terms of the teams we have next year, based on what they were this past year, looks brutal. But you never really can get wrapped up into that at this point. Thanks for the call, Anthony, as always. Let's go to Aveen. Aveen, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. So I was a big Drake May guy going into the 24 draft, and I was obsessively reading all the draft nicks, and all the red flags about Jaden Daniels were really scaring me. And my thought process was, why wouldn't you just go for the bigger frame, stronger arm quarterback? But those red flags ended up being a nothing burger. The pressure to sack and the lack of throws in the middle field.
Yep.
And, watching these two guys, I agree with you. I think they're both great. But, yeah, my thinking has flipped. I prefer Jaden Daniels. I think the down-to-down consistency with the accuracy, with the processing, with the down-to-down decision-making, I think is superior to May. And, the reason we had that historically good fourth down rate was because Jaden Daniels is so pinpoint accurate and he's so fast with his processing. I think if Drake May was under that pressure with all the fourth downs and third downs we had to face that season, you would have some misses that Jaden Daniels doesn't have. He's more inconsistent with that. And, with the playoffs, Jaden Daniels played his best, and Drake May he hasn't been bad, but he has played his worst that he's played all season. And, people will say the defenses we faced in 24 weren't that good, but those offenses we faced, the Ben Johnson Lions, the Liam Cohen Buccaneers, were two of the best offenses we've seen like the past 5 to 10 years. He had to do it on the road, and he had to be flawless. And that level of flawlessness is, I don't think Drake May can get up to that level. But the big thing is with the draft. I think if you ask GMs around the league to do a redraft, I think they would take Drake May number 1. And I think it's just because of the risk averse stuff with the injuries. People would be more risk averse.
That'd be an interesting question for the offseason. If there was an anonymous sort of GM survey going back and redrafting 2024, I'd be very interested in that. Maybe it's happened already and I just haven't seen it. The one thing that you just said, yes, the offenses that they faced in the postseason, Tampa, Detroit, Philly, lights out, and Jaden had to match it and exceed it, and ultimately the turnovers killed them in the Philadelphia game, and their defense obviously killed them. But the defenses, the offenses they faced in the regular season, that's where they got a break. The Giants twice, Cleveland, Arizona, Tennessee, Carolina, New Orleans, etc. Whereas some of the teams they faced in the regular season defensively were outstanding. Pittsburgh, Philly, twice. New Orleans was a good defense when they faced New Orleans. Atlanta was a better defense when they faced them at the end of the year. Baltimore early in the year. I'm forgetting Cleveland's defense that they faced, last year. So appreciate the call. I got to get to a break. Those of you on hold, I see the lines are packed for this. So we'll do this for a segment or two. Stay there. You're redrafting 2024. Caleb Williams is off the board. You're Washington at number 2. May or Daniels, a year plus later, who would you take and why? Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Let's get Ian in here real quickly. Ian, I can pretty much guess who you will take, even though you were a big Jaden Daniels fan last year. But Drake May, Jaden Daniels, redrafting 2024. Caleb Williams is gone. Who are you taking and why?
Before the draft, I would have taken Jaden Daniels for all the reasons you've articulated, the higher upside, et cetera. The reason I'm taking Drake May going forward, or if I could go back in retrospect, is simply due to the injury risk, the ability to not just withstand hits, but the type of hits he takes. You are correct that Drake May takes a lot of hits, but they seem in the course of a normal football game. Jaden Daniels, I've said this many times before, seems to take hits that look like car crashes. The Van Ginkel hit, the running out of bounds.
Well, the Van Ginkel hit wasn't a hit
yard
on him. He was chasing down someone who was rumbling for a pick
Understood.
six. He was actually trying to be a tackler. Yeah.
Understood. But just
Flukish.
watching with your eyes, when you see something like that, it's hard to get that out of your mind. He goes flying. And it's, again, we've seen all quarterbacks get injured. We've seen all quarterbacks get hurt. Watching Jaden Daniels get tackled or hit, it just seems viscerally very different. And so for me, it's the injury risk is the driving factor on why I would choose Drake May. But the secondary decision is there is a California cool that we talked about going back to week 1 of last year with Jaden Daniels, that sometimes his calmness, et cetera, while it's I love, and it can be Roger Federer-like, sometimes you need a little bit of a Nadal. And I just
wow. I mean, that's the best you're ever going to get from Ian, because Roger Federer is the all-time ice in his veins individual sport performer. He and Bjorn Borg. Exactly. Just mark it down, Max. We got, an absolute over-the-top compliment from Ian about a Washington player. But continue, please.
No, and again, I am a Federer guy, and I love that demeanor. But there are times when, you had Sabah or other callers come in, and he's on the sidelines, and it's like, you're in a team sport. I need a little bit more gravitas, a little bit more steadfastness. You don't need to be Tom Brady and yelling all the time, but I just sometimes feel like it comes too easy for him.
Mm-hmm.
And in that position, when you're the leader, I just need someone to take it a little bit more seriously. And again,
you know what? If we didn't have the Cincinnati throw to Terry, if we didn't have, I'll take the Hail Mary out because it's a Hail Mary. If we didn't have the big comeback against the Eagles and that final drive and that final touchdown throw to Jamison Crowder, if we didn't have what I think may have been the most spectacular, performance in that overtime against Atlanta, if we didn't have the Tampa Bay late drive, if we didn't have one answer after another in the Detroit game as examples, I would probably say, yeah, that bothers me too. But with that demeanor, he delivered in the clutch over and over and over again. So I can't get worked up
with you
about the cool, too cool for school thing. I think it actually really benefited him. All right, I got to roll. Thanks for the call, Ian. Ron, Paulie, Stevie Ray, DC, Mark, Robert, everybody on hold. Stay there. We'll do this for another segment. You're redrafting 24, the Super Bowl quarterback for the AFC champion New England Patriots. Drake May is on the board, but so is the guy that we had and have Jaden Daniels. Who are you taking and why? Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. I do want you to know that this Sunday, Redfin is kicking off an even bigger game during the big game. They are giving away $1 million home in an epic, never been done before scavenger hunt, all on the Redfin app. Watch closely. The home is hidden in Rocket and Redfin's commercial during the big game. The winner will be the first to solve 6 clues and find the $1 million home on the Redfin app. Download or update the app to play Redfin's Great American Home Search, presented by Rocket. This is fun. Jaden Daniels or Drake May redrafting 2024. We haven't done it. It's been a conversation I know among many of you during the course of the season. We're now one game left in the season. So we've seen Drake May not only complete a regular season, but we've seen him play in the biggest games that New England's had all season long. 3 playoff games. And he has faced 3 excellent defensive teams, something that didn't happen a lot during the regular season. They played Cleveland during the regular season. They played an Atlanta team that was getting better at the time defensively, but not much else in terms of really good defensive football teams. You'd have to go back early in the season when they faced New Orleans on the road, and it was a close game. They were actually, in trouble in that game. But 3 incredible defensive teams and a fourth coming. I mean, 4 legitimate top 5-ish defensive football teams. And he has not been the quarterback that he was in the regular season, which isn't unusual when you're playing teams that aren't very good. If you are a good quarterback, you're going to thrive, hopefully, in those games. And when you're playing much better competition, it's going to be tougher. And if you want to make the case that he didn't even have the chance to perform at a high level in the AFC Championship game because the coach basically took the ball out of his hands, that's not an unreasonable view. He did not have a chance in the AFC Championship game to do what he did at times during the regular season. Vrabel said, Denver's impotent offensively. They're not going to be able to score unless we create the opportunity for them to score. And we've done that in our last 2 playoff games, turning the ball over with our quarterback, fumbling 6 times, losing 3 of them in the 2 playoff games coming in. So we're not going to let Drake May do that to us in this playoff game. We'll let him run. We'll give him some easy stuff, and if it's not there, he can run, and that's what they did. I mean, he completed essentially 1 pass in the game that was, worth anything, and it came off a flea flicker. However, big-time runs in the game. 10 rushes, 65 yards. He almost outrushed the Denver team. And certainly the last third down was the game clincher. Huge play, big-time play for him. Quarterbacks do make big-time plays as runners. Jaden's done it, and Drake May has done it a few times in this postseason. He also made some really good throws in the previous 2 playoff games. 301-230-0980. Simple question. You're redrafting 2024. You're on the clock at 2. Caleb Williams is gone. You're picking for Washington. Are you selecting Jaden Daniels or Drake May? I'm still with Daniels. I just think Daniels' upside as a playmaker is greater than May's. With that said, May's a really good playmaker and really good off schedule. I think he's going to be really good. I think they're both going to be 5 years from now. We're going to be having this conversation, and it's going to be 6 1/2 dozen the other. That's the way I see it right now. Long way to go. And Jaden's one big risk, and everybody that has had this debate points to this before they point to anything else. They're concerned about his health. They're concerned about him staying healthy. Max is sticking with Jaden Daniels as well. Let's go to DC, who's been on hold for a while. DC, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Great day, Kevin. How are you?
I'm good, DC. How are you?
Man, I'm excellent, brother. This question is kind of funny to me because I think everybody sees what Jade can do, and he was faced with adversity his rookie year, whether it was injuries, whether it was his defense being bottom third in the league. The running game, he was the running game. If we take his yards away, I don't think we're a top 3 rushing team in the NFL. And also his ability to complete passes, everybody talks about that. Those 4th down conversions was his ability to complete passes. And I think only a few were rushing. And I don't see how you can say he doesn't have any fire, because the reason he got hurt this year, if anybody watched that Seattle game, you will watch Jaden be disappointed, upset, and people not running their routes, not catching the ball. So he started pressing, and he got hurt because he was playing with the fire. Instead of him taking it out on his teammates, he tried to do it all himself. I don't know if you remember that, Kevin, but he played with fire in that game.
I do, and it was really evident when you got wind from the people out there, and you watched the tape, and we had I had Steve Suter breaking down the film. He's like, nobody's running the routes at the proper depth. You can see Jaden has no confidence in anything. Look, the play he got hurt on, he should have never been in the game at that point. If he had been in the game, there should have been handoffs, no RPOs, no read options, no dropbacks. That was on the coaching staff. And that part part of that, by the way, kind of plays into maybe why Cliff isn't here. You go back to just the chances he took with Jaden at times. I get it. But that's the head coach's responsibility in that game.
But I'm also going to say one more thing, Kevin.
Sure.
That he will learn from. We know one thing about Jaden. He doesn't make the same mistake twice. And him pressing in that game, I guarantee you he will not do the same again. His teammates not doing what they're supposed to do. I look at Dan Quinn. He needs to take them out or do whatever needs to be done. And the position coach needs to do the same. So that's another reason why I would like him over Drake May. He doesn't make the same mistake twice.
Thanks for that. Let's go to Paulie. Paulie, go ahead.
Big guy, hell to the W, man. How you doing?
What's up?
Man, hey, listen, man. You know, I was a Drake May guy. Remember that? I said I wanted a guy who was going to be in the pocket, and he reminded me of Josh Allen. You convinced me into Jaden Daniels. You know what I mean? You convinced me into
I can't
Jaden
believe
Daniels.
I've ever convinced you into anything. But go
No,
ahead.
you convinced me into Jaden Daniels, man. Because remember, I said I don't want a guy that's going to be running around. I want a guy that's going to sit in the pocket and throw the ball. You know what I mean? And
he did that well,
plays
too.
with his feet if he has to. Right, and that's my whole point. So, redrafting, I'm taking Jaden Daniels because everything I thought he couldn't do, he did. Sit in the pocket, make plays with his feet. I mean, that's the one thing I know he could do is make plays with his feet. But for sit in the pocket and being a pocket passer, he's a leader. But most importantly, between the two is like. Drake May is part of the machine. Jaden Daniels is the machine. This run that Drake May is doing right now with the Patriots in the Super Bowl, he's helping, he's contributing. Jaden strapped that team on his back last year.
Yeah.
Jaden, like DC just said, Jaden was the running game. Jaden beat Tampa Bay. Jaden beat Detroit. Jaden kept us in the game against from the Eagles in the championship. You know what I mean? So everything that you said about him in college, about they didn't have a defense and he had to keep scoring just to keep his team in the games, to win the games, he translated it to the next year with us last year. So for me, I don't see that with Drake May. I see Drake May playing good on a good team. I see Jaden Daniels strapping the team on his back and winning games. So if we ever get some good players around him, then I think we'll definitely see something even more special than what we see here now, man. And as far as him not having no fire, that's crazy, man. They said that about Eli Manning for years, and all he did was win 2 Super Bowls. Get out of here.
Well, the other thing. Well, I mean, you would say that about Joe Montana. There's a lot of those guys that just carry themselves in a way that looks like it's effortless. But the other thing. Oh shoot, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, the other thing, and Ian said this, and he's not the only one that said this, and I don't think I agree completely that his hits that he takes are train wreck hits. RG3 took train wreck hits. He took some of the most awkward hits I've ever seen. Jaden's, hits when he takes a big hit is not awkward. It's usually because he's trying to get that extra yard. He's trying to move the sticks. He's trying to get into the end zone, whatever it is. He's a totally different athlete than RG3 was. RG3 had no peripheral vision as an athlete.
Right.
That's not Jaden.
Right. Right. Most of the time, Jaden taking hits, he's moving to the side.
Yeah.
He's wiry. RG was taking straight up hits. He was getting hit in the chest. You're right. He wasn't. RG was just north and south. Jaden Daniels is left to right. He takes football hits, man. He's a football player. He's a quarterback. He's going to get hit. Just like Mahomes gets hit. Just like Drake May gets hit.
Lamar gets hit. Burrow gets hit. Burrow took the biggest hit of his career here.
Right.
It just happens. The other thing, too, is the odds of a quarterback being seriously injured are much higher in the pocket than they are outside of it. And we haven't seen.
Stafford got hit for 14 years.
Say that again?
Come on, man.
What'd you say?
Matthew Stafford got hit. Matthew Stafford got hit.
Yeah.
It ain't about if you get hit. It's about getting back up.
Yeah, and we just want him to keep getting back up because there are quarterbacks, and everybody's built differently. There are quarterbacks that, for whatever reason, take poundings and never get hurt. We had a quarterback like that here in 15, 16, 17. The dude, other than the Achilles injury, has basically barely ever been hurt until he got older, and took major hits. And there are guys that are built that way, and other guys aren't. I think the jury's still out on Jaden, but the history would say that 2025 was the aberration, not the norm. We'll see. Thank you, Paulie. Let's go to Stevie Ray in Baltimore. JD5 or May? Let's find some more May people here. Do we only have one May at this point, Ian? I think so. Stevie Ray, go. May or JD5, you're redrafting 2024 at number 2.
Well, I went to LSU, so I'm not going to be a May fan. It's not to say that I don't. Certainly, I'm impressed with what he's done so far this year. But then again, I also look at it and see his defense and what he's also got there. There is no. I would have. If we'd have even had the number 1 draft pick, I would have taken him over Caleb Williams. I would have. But then again, I did go to LSU. I'm a little biased to that. But I also saw every single play that Jaden Daniels did from the first time he stepped onto Tiger Stadium. So I have seen him play and do things that made me want him. And we did get him, and it was spectacular. And then he goes off and he has – now, let's talk about this season for a second. I felt as though the McLaurin holdout was as much to do with what problems we had as anything else. McLaurin comes and it kind of put a pall on the season where you had this guy that everybody thought was going to be this team player, and then all of a sudden he starts doing the things he does. And then he came in, and then he didn't even play well when he did come in, and then he got hurt. So the more you took your best receiver, the guy that had this thing going with JD5 last year, and you lost him, and you also had traded away. What was the second receiver's name?
De'Ami Brown.
There you go. And you were saying, you got rid of him, so you didn't have anybody that you had on the team last year playing. So and Paulie said it, and everybody else said it. When it comes to injuries, JD5 has absolutely got the ability to be able to look and see and play the game, and an ability to be able to say, hey, okay, I'm not going to do that again. Okay, he's going to start learning to hit the floor. Even if he can pick up another 10 yards, it doesn't make any difference. The only thing that counts is the first down. The first down. Once you got the first down, then you've got the ability to be able to get 4 more plays in order to do what you got to do, and that's what he needs to do. That's what Patrick Mahomes does. Patrick Mahomes, all he's looking at is the first down marker to get 4 more plays, to get the kind of plays that he needs in order to win the game. That's the biggest thing, and that's what JD5 has to learn. Hey, get the first down and get it without getting slammed. That's for sure. As far as next year goes, we got to build the defense around him. We got to build the defense around him. Once we get that done, I'm not saying we're going to get it done, but the other thing too is last year the making the playoffs and getting to the championship was a two-edged sword. It was great. We got to go, we got there, and so on. But we also ended up with the 29th pick in the draft. If we had not, and let's say we just had another season like an 8-8 season, we probably would have moved back into the draft where we would have been able to move and do things later.
Yeah, but if they'd finished 8-8, we might have many more questions, and this segment might be going a completely different way. Thanks for the call. Good call. Appreciate the call. Look, I do think that when you look at the Jaden Daniels 2024 season, and I was just sorry, I was a little bit distracted there because I was reading something at the end of that call, that it was so much more about what he was able to do, by the way, as a rookie compared to a second-year player. which, the second-year player, the second season opportunity really wasn't an opportunity for Jaden Daniels because of the injuries. Understood, realize that is a concern. But, man, when you look at what he did in 2024 with a team that really around him was subpar, is all-time, and it really was an all-time rookie season. And it was an all-time rookie season for that reason more than any other. Let me just also mention this because I had this thought in thinking about Drake May this year. Hunter Henry was basically the second, the number 2 guy as a pass catcher, reception-wise, and statistically from a yard standpoint. And he actually led the team in touchdowns. I think Zach Ertz was huge for Jaden in his rookie year, even with the drops. And I was looking at something. Jaden had a lot more dropped balls than Drake May did this year, especially in the regular season. But that's a position that we should be talking about so much between now and the draft, free agency, all the way through the draft, because Zach Ertz ain't coming back more likely than not at his age after the serious injury he had. And there's no, guarantee, far from it, that they have somebody on the roster in Ben Sinnott that can replace that. Younger quarterbacks really do thrive on big tight ends that are veteran and are reliable in terms of where they're going to be. Jaden benefited from that in his first year, and Drake May in the first system with Josh McDaniels benefited from that significantly with Hunter Henry. Big time with Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry, 60 catches, 768 yards, second in both categories after Diggs, led the team in touchdowns. Zach Ertz, I think, had more catches for Washington last year, but that offense can be elevated by Jaden Daniels, but they need some players, and right now they have one that we know of for next year, and that's Terry. All right, everybody on hold. We'll do this one more. Sorry, the phone lines are packed. Jaden or, Drake May going back, redrafting 2024. Who would you take and why? This Sunday, Redfin is kicking off an even bigger game during the big game. They are giving away $1 million home in an epic, never been done before scavenger hunt. Never been done before scavenger hunt, all on the Redfin app. Watch closely. The home is hidden in Rocket and Redfin's commercial during the big game. The winner will be the first to solve 6 clues and find the $1 million home on the Redfin app. Download or update the app to play Redfin's Great American Home Search, presented by Rocket. Window Nation's offering 4 free windows with every 4 purchased right now. They're offering 10% beyond that in the form of a Valentine's Day discount. So you're getting basically half price and then 10% more because Valentine's Day is in the month of February. It's coming up in about 10 days. And they also offer the opportunity to get these new windows without paying for them for 2 years. No money down, no payments on a monthly basis, and no interest charged for 2 years. Here's why you should give Window Nation a shot if you've been thinking about new windows. Number one, they'll come to your home when it's convenient for you. In an hour or less, you'll have a quote in your hand for the windows that actually need to be replaced. Most people don't even know which windows in their home aren't insulated well, don't give you the best when it comes to keeping heat in your home during the winter and cool air in your home during the summer. But you'll find that out with an actual free in-home estimate. Number two is their product selection is second to none. Number three is they come out and install the windows in a day or less. That's part of their promise. They'll leave your home looking nicer than when they arrived. And number four, there's nobody with a better deal right now. Shop it all you want, but you're not going to get 4 free with every 4 purchased, an additional 10% for Valentine's Day, and an opportunity to not pay anything with no interest charged until the year 2028. 45,000 5-star reviews. That's what Window Nation has. They were voted number 1 by Forbes magazine in terms of window installation companies across the country. If you've been thinking about new windows, especially during these cold days and nights, just give Window Nation a shot. That's all I ask. Call them at 866-90Nation or head to windownation.com. All right, Mark in Largo. Mark, go ahead. JD5 or Drake May, you're redrafting 2024. Who are you taking? Hello, Mark.
Mark.
Hey, what's going on?
Good.
What's going on?
You up?
My personal opinion is I think you have to look at what defensive coordinators would have to think. Me personally, I'm going to sit up and take Jaden Daniels every day and 5 days and 5 times on Sunday. And the reason why I say that is because Jaden, as Paulie said, strapped the team and took the team by itself and has done it with less talent than what Drake May has done. The other thing is I think you also have to look at the systems as well too, going forward. Drake May is in a system that I think is kind of a system that has been figured out in the NFL. Because if it wasn't the case, Josh McDaniel would have had a job a long time ago. He doesn't have one.
He's never been disputed by anybody as an offensive coordinator. He's just not a head coach. Brilliant offensive coordinator always.
Well, I beg to differ on that.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
Because Mac Jones would be great, wouldn't he? Because Mac Jones was his offensive coordinator.
Mac Jones wasn't bad under Josh McDaniels.
So anyway, going back to Jay.
Yeah, I think you just made my point per usual.
Oh God, here we go. I love you, Kevin. Why do we always
Mac Jones played pretty well with Kyle this year and also played pretty well.
He did. That's what I'm saying.
And also pretty well with Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels is a top level, elite level offensive designer, coordinator, and play caller. He just is a terrible head coach, apparently. Okay, and that's why Mike Vrabel, one of the best out there, couldn't wait to get Josh McDaniels. And I think it's one of the reasons Drake May has thrived. Continue, I think.
Okay. As I was saying before you rudely interrupt me, what I was saying was that I do feel that Jaden keeps the defensive coordinator up late at night. Jaden Daniels keeps everybody up, period. So I don't think, look, as much as people want to talk about Drake May has better talent than, I've said this repeatedly on Chris's show, on everybody's show. He has better talent than what Jaden has had. In fact, everybody in that draft class has had better talent around him than Jaden Daniels has had. Mm-hmm. Jaden Daniels this year is going to be the first time he's going to have real good talent because I think Adam is really going to have to spend the money to get the talent to keep it going. I also think this, too, going on what I think about the Patriots and what's going to happen on Sunday. Sunday is going to be the first time the Patriots have faced a quality offense since the regular season. Because if you think about it, the Chargers were banged up. Something was in C.J. Stroud's head. I don't know what was going on with him. And the Broncos didn't have their starting quarterback.
So this is actually going to be a tough game, in which I would tell anybody, if the Seahawks get up to a 14-0 lead, you're going to see Vrabel probably tell Drake, "Well, we're not going to do anything with the ball. We're going to sit on it." And that is the reason why you take Jaden over him.
Well, they wouldn't do that down 14-0. They're not going into a shell down 14-0.
Well, if he tries to make him pass, he's going to start making a lot of mistakes. And I just don't think he can do that with that team. Now, that being said, I just think Dan would never dream of saying that to Jaden. That's the difference. What you said in the AFC title game, Dan would never dream of saying that to Jaden. That's the reason why you go with Jaden over you go with Drake May. Because Jaden is
there's no doubt that Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, David Blau would never say we are taking the ball completely out of Jaden's hands because we think that's our best chance to win the football game. Certainly not through the first 2 seasons of our team. Of course, we would never be in that position with our defense, and New England was.
And look, here's the deal. If we had a defense like the Patriots, we would have beaten Philadelphia by 2 touchdowns, and we would have beaten probably Kansas City by 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl.
If we had a great defense last year, we would have won the division and had home games and probably been in the Super Bowl. I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. All right,
and
thanks.
won the Super Bowl.
I got to find somebody that wants Drake May, and I think I got somebody right now. Robert in Annapolis, Drake May or Jaden Daniels?
You mentioned when you were talking about ice-veined players, our favorite guy, Joe Flacco. That guy had the iciest veins I've ever seen.
No doubt.
But on this, I would go for Drake May because I don't have any bias on the issue, but I do have a bias for big framed quarterbacks. That's, as much as I love Lamar, I've always preferred to have Josh Allen.
But Lamar's frame, Robert, is completely different than Jaden's frame. Lamar is a big, thick guy.
It is. And yet it's but again, Josh Allen is that physical kind of guy that can do all the things. Really, Drake May is a younger and possibly better version of Josh Allen because I think he's probably a better passer. But so you can analyze these 2 years all you want from any angle you want. But the way I look at it is going forward, which of these two, they're both top tier quarterbacks, or potential to be, which one is going to endure the season after season physicality of the NFL longer into his career and give you the longevity that you want in your quarterback. I'm not so much looking at what they've done as of now, because again, we can come up with all these issues that others have addressed, but that they both have it. They both have the it factor. So going forward, which one is going to withstand just the physicality of the sport?
I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something right here that this is just observational only. I don't have any reason in terms of substantive fact to say this. But when you were talking about Josh Allen and Drake May, do you ever watch Drake May's interviews? This is observational from afar versus Josh Allen. There is something about Josh Allen's quickness. I'm talking about like in that communication sort of environment that just is totally different than Drake May. A little bit marble-mouthed, a little bit, he's younger too. Look, he's young and he's not as exposed from that standpoint. But every time I watch Josh Allen, I see a really super, communicator, clear communicator, I think innately bright. Every time I watch Drake May, I don't feel that way. I have no idea if I'm even close because Drake may be an absolute brilliant guy. But I don't know. There's something different personality-wise between May and Allen. And I would also just say this. Isn't Allen bigger? I need to look that up. Isn't Allen a couple of inches bigger and 15 pounds heavier?
Allen may be 6'5". May's 6'4", about 225. Allen may be 6'5". I'm not sure, but they're both.
Allen's 6'5", 240. Allen's 6'5", 240. So not that much different. But Allen is Allen's a fullback when he's running.
Yeah.
May's a big dude. I see that. And by the way, I think maybe as a runner equal to Allen, but different because he'll take on the contact, but Allen almost seeks it out.
Well, I think May has better running instincts about avoiding the contact, but again,
I don't know. Allen's pretty good.
How they are in interviews, and I don't really get into all that stuff. I don't care what they do on the field.
I haven't. It's
really
one of those things that I always look for, and I'm like, what kind of communicator is this person? What kind of thinker is this person? And sometimes that'll reveal itself during these things, and a lot of times, by the way, it won't, especially when they're younger players. Anyway, you take May.
Kevin, a pro quarterback can't cry after a loss. You can't cry after a loss in the NFL. You can't do that. Johnny Unitas never did that. All right, my friend. Thanks for taking my call.
Let's go to Ron in Upper Marlboro. May or JD5 if you're redrafting 24 from the number 2 spot after Caleb Williams is off the board. Go ahead, Ron. Thanks for
Kevin, how you doing?
Good, Ron.
Kevin, how you doing, man?
Good.
All right. Look, I love the show. I am a Washington Commanders fan, born and raised here. Now, you guys got to stop all this with the schemes and all that. Your question was, if we were redrafting right now, looking at what we see, we're seeing Drake May, who probably is the MVP, would you say?
I think Stafford's going to win it, but it's apparently going to be very close in the voting. I mean, I think Stafford's a much better quarterback right now than Drake May, but that's not how you do it. It's based on the season that they had.
Correct.
But look, he's a finalist. He's one of 2 for the MVP. Yes.
Right. And let's look at. I know. Old John, Big John used to say, "Talent get you fired." I love Jaden Daniels. Don't get me wrong. I love him. His talent is excellent. Probably a better quarterback than Drake May. But at the end of the day, Kevin, when we're looking for a quarterback, we were looking for a franchise quarterback that's going to be here for 10, maybe 12 years. If you look at Drake May, if you look at Jaden Daniels, you tell me who you think is going to be around a lot longer. I'm just being honest. And if I'm building a team, I'm drafting Drake May.
Okay.
From what I see right now, I love Jaden. But, man, you know the old saying, your best ability is your availability. And, Kevin, this is just Drake May's second year. And, yeah, he got better talent, better coaching around him. New England's probably going to be back in the Super Bowl race for a few more years. There's no doubt about that.
We'll see.
We'll see that.
It's a good football team. It's a good football team.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Right.
I mean,
but we're waiting. We're hoping to see if our quarterback is going to stay healthy, Kevin. You said it earlier. Kevin, I'm a little scared, man. I'm a little worried that Jaden, man, may not. I hope and pray that he stays healthy. But Kevin, if you're honest.
You're expressing, and thanks for the call, Ron, you're expressing without question the number 1 Jaden Daniels concern. By the way, Drake May takes some big hits. He holds on to the ball a little bit too long at times. The processing isn't exactly what Jaden's was as a rookie, and he takes hits, and he also coughs up the ball occasionally. And he took some big hits early in the season. I mean, some vicious hits early in the season that looked like, but he's bigger frame, came back, tough dude, the whole thing. I don't know who's going to have the longer career. I can't project that. I understand why you would say Drake May, because he's just a bigger, stronger frame, of a quarterback. But Jaden, again, 52 out of 54 as a college player and 20 out of 20. This past season was the aberration. It's not the norm. Question is, will it be a trend? I can't answer that. I hope it isn't. Bobby in North Carolina, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. Drake being good right now doesn't really surprise me. He played down here, and I watched a lot of his games at Carolina, and then I had some people that watched him in high school. But that being said, JD5, if I'm drafting again, okay, no question about it. Kevin, and Drake's the new shiny toy out there right now, Kevin. And, he's in the Super Bowl, and everybody's kind of got JD5 on the back burner. Same thing with Caleb. He's the new shiny toy. So I actually believe we know what kind of competitor we have at playing quarterback for us. This is going to drive him in the offseason to be hopefully even better than he was year 1. We've been talking for weeks now. Let's just throw year 2 out the window. Everything was bad. It started bad. In the middle was bad. The ending the whole season was crap, Kevin. For one reason or the other, it was just
They
awful.
were on the verge of being 4-2 before the fumble in the Monday night game, but they were not going to overcome all those injuries for sure.
No, there's no way, Kevin. Injuries just derailed this whole thing. And Jaden didn't have any weapons, Kevin, when he played this year. My God, he didn't have Terry much, and then the other 2, 3, and 4. Kevin, we got to get talent there. We got, and the tight end position was okay, but Ertz he dropped a lot of balls. So we've got to get 2 more wide receivers this year in the offseason. We got to get a tight end that they can count on to catch the ball from Jaden.
We need a tight end, man. We need it as much as we need another receiver, which is true. There's got to be a big 6'5", 6'6", 6'4" pass-catching tight end that is an exceptional and reliable route runner. Dallas Goedert's a free agent. Just throwing that out there.
Well, he's out there, and Pitts is out there too. And I know his work ethic is not good, but I think maybe he needs to change the scene right now. But Pitts has got skills, Kevin. But all that being said, brother, you and I both know if we don't fix the defense, that's what's amazing to me about Jaden year 1, Kevin. We have seen historically the worst 2 defenses you could possibly see the last 2 years, and Jaden carried us. We won 14 freaking games year 1 and 2 road playoff games, man. And it's amazing to sit back and because we're terrible. Our defense is terrible, Kevin. The scheme was terrible, the talent was terrible, and then the injury bug finished them out this year.
It's so bad. It's got to get better. Think about all the opportunities they would have had, and maybe a couple of short fields and the whole thing had the defense played well. And Mays benefited from that in the postseason, big time. They had their touchdown last week came off the Jarrett Stidham fumble, at the 10-yard line. How about a few of those next year? We'll take them. Thanks, Bobby. Appreciate it. Let's finish it up with Little. Little, go ahead.
Coach, shout out to Mad Max. Let me say this, Coach.
Doing,
man, I'm hanging in there. Daniel's stone cold killer, but I'm going with the guitar player. You know why I say that, Kevin? Drake May built just like a guitar player, but he got a neck like a linebacker. Now, I'm gonna tell you about
a big old neck. Yeah, he got a big old head and big old neck. That's for sure. Yeah,
but you know what, Kevin? Back in the late 90s, late 70s, late 70s, early 80s, I was taught by, went to quite a few summer football camps with Dick Buckett's brother. He coached at Duval Senior High. He used to talk about the neck of a football player. Yeah, he was a bad man. He was in his game when I was 17, 18 years old. We used to go to summer camp. We had him at Maryland University. He coached at Duval Senior High, Buckett's brother. Now, he would coach about the neck of a football player and how it always keep you going forward. Now, look, Kevin, my man JD5, a bad man. But like 2-3 calls ago, I worry about him. So I've been Xing him. I've been Xing his mom. Go out there and get that kid a 5-gallon bucket of what you call blubber, grease, frying oil. They got it in Alaska. It's going to build his core up. My man from Carolina, quarterback, Newman, he used to fry food with it. That's how he got his upper body so big and his neck got so strong. And it's healthy. It's ADA approval. You need to start frying that boy chicken in some blubber grease oil. Put some blubber on his body. And look.
Just keep sending any kind of good suggestions to the mother. You don't need to send them to him. Send him to the mother. She's the gatekeeper.
That uniform, man. He got to build his neck up, Kevin. Look at Drake. Right. Look at Drake May's neck.
He's got a big old neck.
Hey, look.
All right, man. Thanks, Little, as always. When we come back, a lot of you keep sending me the new logo for the team, a spear through the W. I've looked at it. I'll give you my thoughts. Max probably will have more of them. We'll do that next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. This Sunday, Redfins kicking off An even bigger game during the big game. They're giving away $1 million home in an epic, never-been-done-before scavenger hunt, all on the Redfin app. Watch closely. The home's hidden in Rocket and Redfin's commercial during the big game. The winner will be the first to solve 6 clues and find the $1 million home on the Redfin app. Download or update the app to play Redfin's Great American Home Search, presented by Rocket.
All right. Happy Wednesday, everybody. It is not so happy at the Washington Post. Travesty is taking place in the world of sports media this morning as the Washington Post has announced that they will be closing their sports department in its current form. Executive editor Matt Murray says the paper plans to cover sports as a, quote, cultural phenomenon and will retain several reporters to join their features department and cover sports from there. In NFL news, the Jets, they are hiring Frank Reich as their next offensive coordinator. He previously filled in as interim head coach at Stanford last year under Andrew Luck. He now rejoins the NFL ranks in New York. Plus, James Harden, he has been traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers in exchange for Darius Garland and a second-round pick. Plus, last night, the Wizards, they get boat raced by the New York Knicks 132-101, and the Caps, they get their 3-game win streak snapped by the Philadelphia Flyers as they fall 4-2. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type at the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch programs like Take Command all off season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us. Turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
So do you know about the spear through the helmet logo, potential change that people are talking about for our team?
Yeah,
Max?
so I've seen it just kind of bumping around on Twitter. It's the W with like a circle around it and then 2 spears making an X behind it, right?
Yeah. I mean, let me just tell you, I just open up my notifications and everybody
Of course, you're flooding, yeah.
So I don't know what it means, just so everybody understands. The only thing I know is what I've been saying now for a year and a half. And that is the intent was to change the uniform to the Super Bowl uniform. We saw those as the alt uniforms this year, and for it to eventually become permanent. When that happens depends on a lot of the stuff that, involves league, stipulations when it comes to uniform changes. But in terms of that logo, the old logo, the 72 and on logo from Blackie Wetzel, that I've, been told going back to a year and a half ago when I said these old uniforms, the championship uniforms, are going to come back. They're going to come back in the form of an alt uniform in 25 and then something more permanent, even though the name more likely than not is not going to change. But in terms of what that logo on the helmet goes, it looks like, I don't think it'll be the actual logo from, the last 50-something years. The spears through the helmet, the speared helmet was a 60s helmet worn by the 60s Redskins, Sonny Jurgensen, Charlie Taylor, Bobby Mitchell, Jerry Smith, etc. But it changed when Lombardi became the coach. They wore those helmets for the last time in the 1969 season. And then in the 1970 and 71 seasons, they had moved into what Lombardi wanted, which was that yellowish helmet with the R on it, okay, that they wore for 2 years in 70 and 71. Why did it look like that? Because when Lombardi came to D.C., he wanted it to be like the Green Bay helmet, which was yellow with the G on it. And so you had the yellow with the R in 70 with Bill Austin, because Lombardi never got to coach a team with the R on the helmet because he passed away. And then 71, George Allen's first team, before he had commissioned the Wetzel family to do the new logo, he had in 71, his first season, the R helmet. And then in 72, they debuted the logo that we know as the logo that was revered by not just Skins fans, but by NFL fans overall. Nothing ever controversial about the logo. Never anything insinuated in terms of it being pejorative, insensitive, racial, in any sort of way, racially insensitive. So, but still, to bring that back as part of the current name doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. To bring back the spear and make that part of the logo, which goes on the helmet through the W, I guess you could say, Commanders, spears from way back. I don't know. There's still a bit of a disconnect for me, but I'd be for it. I anything that brings back something from the past. Now, the arrow helmet, the spear helmet, it was not through a W in the 1960s. It was just there on the helmet. But I still believe in my heart of hearts that anything with Native American imagery on the uniform itself is less likely than more likely. I'm not saying I'm in favor of it. I'm not in favor of it, as most of you know. But I do think the uniform that we saw this year, the Super Bowl uniform that made us look like, for some of us, that we were watching our team play football, although they didn't play very well in them. They did against Denver. The Denver game was the good game that they played in them. The Seattle game in which they debuted them did not go very well. But they looked great, and it certainly brought back a feeling. I'm only going to speak for myself, but I know that many of you agree. And I'm not watching an expansion team tonight, at least uniform-wise. The name in full chyron on a screen with the score still is, irks me. But I think kind of the concession to no name change was uniforms. As I mentioned, October of 2024, this was the direction they wanted to go, and they feel it. I mean, it's an emotional thing for them, too, to do this. The timing on it exactly, I'm not sure. I'm hoping that it's 2026, the primary. I guess we'll find out more. But in terms of that arrow, I'm fine with it. It'd be great, but I don't have any information as to whether or not that'll be the logo on the helmet. But we've certainly seen a lot of the spear in recent, imagery from the team. The only thing I know is that uniform's coming back and it's going to be permanent at some point. I really feel strongly about that. The NFL does have, stipulations in terms of what you have to do before it can become full-time. So I don't know if 2026 is another alt uniform year for that or if it's more permanent, but it might be alt, and then in 27 it becomes permanent. As far as the name goes, doesn't seem like they're in any hurry to change it. All right, when we come back, Jordan DeJohnny from CBS Sports will jump on with us, and then we'll do some Super Bowl trivia next hour. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. Jordan Dejani covers the league for CBSSports.com. He's been on with us many times before. Joins us right now at Jordan Dajani on X on Twitter. Before we get to Super Bowl draft, free agency, I just saw this a little while ago, but Frank Reich named as the OC in New York for the Jets. It now looks like Cliff Kingsbury very likely is going to be, I think, will be shut out of a job in the NFL this year. A, does that surprise you? B, what does it say?
What's going on, Kevin? Thanks for having me back on the show. Yes, it does surprise me a little bit. I think when you view Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator, there are some questions that come with him. I mean, how is he going to operate an offense without a quarterback who's mobile, which is a staple in his offensive scheme? And then you also have to wonder if he's going to be basically a mercenary because he's someone who wants to be a head coach once again. And then on top of that, I don't know if he's been able to show that he can have consistent success that extends for multiple seasons. So those are some of the things I wondered about with Cliff Kingsbury as an offensive coordinator prospect. But I definitely thought that he was going to be able to catch on to a job. I was looking at the New York Giants as a potential match for him. I thought it was a great pairing with Jackson Dart, who obviously likes to use his legs, with the New York Jets as well, because he could be the head coach for that offensive side of the ball. This is an incredibly important hire for Aaron Glenn, who enters the 2026 season on the hot seat. So, yes, I am surprised to see Cliff Kingsbury not catch a job on the carousel.
Jordan, do you think Dan Quinn enters 2026 on the hot seat or not?
I do. I don't know how confident I am in that answer, but I do think it's an avenue worth exploring. And, I think that one of the biggest storylines I've seen from what's already been a really crazy offseason was the decision Washington made at offensive coordinator with David Blau. I feel like Dan Quinn could be staking his job security on the promotion of David Blau, who's just 30 years old. He's never been an offensive coordinator before. He's never called plays before. And now he's been charged with getting Jaden Daniels and company back to the playoffs and back to being what appears to be a legitimate contender in the NFC. So, I think Dan Quinn is a really good coach, but it's hard to ignore everything that went wrong in 2025. So if we were making our hot seat ranking entering 2026, I think I would include Dan Quinn.
The David Blau hire, the way I've described it, Jordan, it's much different than the Durante Jones hire. Two first-time coordinators. They've never done it. That's the similarity. The big difference is that there's been this buzz about Blau since he decided to become a coach. And I don't think that in the building there's any pushback to the decision to elevate Blau. I think that was the plan altogether. But to your point, he's never done it before. From your perspective, talking to people around the league, what do they think of the Blau hire? And then give me, 30 seconds or so on Durante Jones as well.
Well, with David Blau, everyone said the same thing in terms of he was a offensive assistant or offensive coordinator in waiting. Like, he's held in high regard by everybody. And I imagine that he has an incredible relationship with Jaden Daniels as well. But to further my point of why it was a bit questionable, I guess I was a little surprised that it happened so quickly, too. Like, I thought Mike McDaniel, for example, could have been a great hire for Washington. I don't know if they explored that avenue. But Durante Jones, that's someone who I'm not incredibly familiar with. I know he's a Maryland native returning to Washington. I think he spent the past 4 seasons with the Vikings working with defensive backs. I know that he was a guy who interviewed with several different teams for defensive coordinator openings as well. So to team up with a defensive mind like Dan Quinn is certainly going to be beneficial for his career.
Head coaching hires, 10 new ones. Give me the one that you think will work out without any question in your mind right now, and the one that you're pretty skeptical about.
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say I think that John Harbaugh with the Giants is something that will work out. I think that obviously he's considered one of the top head coaches in the NFL. And I think the Giants really went out of their way to get him. And I'm intrigued with the staff that he's building. So I think that John Harbaugh is already established, and he's someone who is prepared to bring that brand back from the dead and make them a contender once again. John Harbaugh was undoubtedly the top option on the coaching carousel this year. In terms of other ones I have questions about, I don't know anything about Todd Monken, of course, the offensive coordinator from the Baltimore Ravens. Was he exactly the top option for the Cleveland Browns, or is he going to be somewhat of a bridge hire given his age and the quarterback situation? It's really tough to find success with the Cleveland Browns, in my opinion. The other one that I had a lot of questions about was the Arizona Cardinals hiring Mike LaFleur. We know he's the brother of Matt LaFleur, but the last time I remember hearing Mike LaFleur was him being the offensive coordinator with Robert Saleh and the New York Jets, and that failed in fantastic fashion with Zach Wilson. So that was an intriguing hire. They, of course, were the last team to land on their lead man as well, so I'm not exactly sure how that's going to go.
We're not that far away from free agency beginning. It's going to be an interesting free agency period for our team in particular, Jordan, because they have so many needs. And they have a ton of cap space. But I want to start with something that Washington won't be in the market for, because you wrote about it recently. And it's not like it's a hot year for free agent quarterbacks. But the number one quarterback that you wrote was interesting to watch this offseason wouldn't be one that we would have predicted, a month and a half ago, but because of the way he played against Chicago in a highly a nationally televised, highly anticipated game for Jordan Love was Malik Willis. Is he going to get a starting opportunity in the free agent market of 2026?
I know, isn't it magical? Malik Willis has to be one of the top storylines entering free agency. I'm not ready and confident enough just yet to say that, hey, Malik Willis is going to get a sizable contract and be the unquestioned QB1 for the Miami Dolphins or whoever it is. I'm not saying that, but I do think he's someone who has earned the at least opportunity to battle someone for a starting job. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see not only where he lands, but what kind of contract he signs too. But, you don't want to put too much stock into a quarterback who has a really good game just one time on a national stage, such as Malik Willis did against the Baltimore Ravens. But I don't think he's that kind of player. I think that he's actually shown that he can step in and find success on multiple occasions. He's done that. When he was traded from Tennessee to Green Bay, he was asked to step into the starting lineup in week 2 after Jordan Love went down with that injury and in Brazil, I think it was, against the Philadelphia Eagles. And he led the Packers to a couple of different wins. So Malik Willis, in my mind, and this is a guy who I've covered. I'm here in Nashville. I watched this guy go through training camps and really learn his way. And while he was unable to hold on to his job here in Nashville, he was able to recreate himself under the guidance of Matt LaFleur. So I'm excited to see what this guy's capable of and where he lands.
Don't you think the last couple of years as NFL fans and media members, the quarterback position in particular, whether it's Baker Mayfield or Geno Smith or Sam Darnold or now Malik Willis, the fact that, he's not done and he might get a big contract, doesn't it just prove that we just don't know anything really? When it comes to that position in particular, you have to wait. I mean, if we haven't learned that you've got to wait several years and it's got to be the right fit before declaring somebody dead, I don't know what we've learned from this.
Isn't that a main storyline for Sunday? Remember Sam Darnold, the bust of the New York Jets, had played for 5 different teams. This is the guy, the first one from that famous 2018 draft class that's starting a Super Bowl. Like, who would have guessed that? And, yeah, I think you're exactly right. And even if there's a quarterback that you don't like, that you think is a bona fide bust, whether that be Will Levis or Zach Wilson, I agree with you. I think you just need to wait. These guys need to find their footing in the league, not only when it comes to the transition from college to NFL, but you have to have the right situation when it comes to the development you receive from the coaching staff and an understanding of everything that it takes to be a professional on and off the field. I think that's an important thing to really keep in mind. And I always point back to this quote that came from Kevin O'Connell, Washington legend, by the way. He said this on the Dan Patrick Show, I think it was a couple of years ago, but he talked about how young quarterbacks will not fail their organizations. The organizations will always fail the young quarterbacks first. And I think that is 100% true. But here's the other part of this, is that you don't exactly have time, whether you're a general manager or a head coach, to develop a quarterback for 4, 5, 6 years. The leashes are getting tighter, and that's been proven by just looking at this coaching carousel with 10 openings this offseason. So, no one batted an eye when the New York Jets parted ways with Sam Darnold, but here he is on the biggest stage of them all. So I think it's an interesting dichotomy to really explore.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm just looking through the last several years of quarterbacks drafted, and I'm trying to find one that maybe has been written off that will reemerge in some great situation a year from now as a playoff quarterback and maybe, who knows, a contender for the MVP. It's hard to identify them. You know, like a guy like Kyler Murray has shown the ability, but at the same time, we've heard so much about work ethic and those things, but the talent's there. I mean, everybody wrote off Daniel Jones. If he comes back healthy, maybe he has a great year. But I don't know if there's anybody out there that you've thought of that it's like this is the guy that we wrote off and we're all going to be talking about next year or the year after. Does anybody come to mind?
Yes, I have a great one. And in fact, I initially included him on my list of the 5 most interesting quarterbacks to watch this offseason. But the thing was, he wasn't really a big name, and I don't think I can objectively say he's one of the most interesting quarterbacks to watch. He's an afterthought. No one cares about this guy. But someone I find myself really intrigued by is actually Will Levis of the Tennessee Titans, because he was someone who stepped into the starting lineup as a rookie under Mike Vrabel and actually looked pretty solid. Remember, he threw 4 touchdowns in his first NFL start against the top pass defense in the Atlanta Falcons. But everything around him was horrific, whether it was the wide receiving core, the offensive line was undoubtedly the worst in the NFL. But entering the next season, the first year with Brian Callahan, Will Levis was the unquestioned quarterback one. Now, maybe that was a mistake in hindsight, but there was good reason for that. Even I was very optimistic with what we could see from Will Levis, especially when you consider that they brought in an offensive mind who helped work with guys like Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, and Joe Burrow with the Cincinnati Bengals. They brought in Brian Callahan specifically to guide this guy. So there's reasons to be optimistic. But, of course, the 2024 season was a disaster. Will Levis looked like the worst quarterback in the NFL.
Terrible.
He was creating memes week in, week out, making just terrible decisions. And I think what's fascinating about that is that he regressed from year 2 to year 1. He looked better as a rookie than he did under the offensive mind brought in specifically to guide him. And when you look at Will Levis, maybe there's some questions with decision-making, but in terms of the physical traits in the NFL arm, he absolutely possesses what you want. So I kind of thought of him as maybe being an interesting trade candidate. I think he has 1 more year remaining on his rookie contract. Of course, I'm not guaranteeing anything, but again, we saw some potential early as with Will Levis as a rookie, and he has that NFL arm. So if he's someone that ends up with, Kevin O'Connell in the Vikings one day or Sean McVay in the Rams, is that someone who could resurface as a legitimate starter?
Interesting. Last week or the AFC title game, the Jarrett Stidham, storyline and how, Josh McDaniels, Belichick and McDaniels in New England and now Sean Payton. And I know the weather was a factor and New England's defense was a factor, but he certainly didn't look the part in that first opportunity or one of the very first. The other guy, too, I kept hearing all during training camp how much Philadelphia loved Tanner McKee. And then he played against Washington at the end of the year. He wasn't overly impressive against kind of one of the worst defenses in the league. But that's an interesting one because Will Levis was obviously picked much higher than the guys that I just mentioned. All right. So before we get to the game, and I will circle back to the game, there are 2 big, opportunities for Washington to improve their team. Free agency's 1. The draft is 2. I don't know how much you've looked ahead to the draft and whether or not you've mock drafted yet, but Washington's got number 7 overall. Do you have thoughts on a player that would be there and could help them immediately?
Yeah, with the Washington Commanders, what are their biggest needs? I think I would basically include every defensive position, pass rusher, linebacker, cornerback especially, now that I think about it, but also the weaponry, whether that be a wide receiver, whether that be a tight end, whether that be a running back. I haven't done too much research into the draft just yet. That'll definitely start next week for me. But I can pull up our mock drafts here at CBSSports.com and look at some guys that they have going to Washington. I'm seeing Carnell Tate with Ohio State, the wide receiver. That's an interesting prospect because I wonder some people think he's kind of a wide receiver 2 as opposed to a wide receiver 1. So I don't know if that's someone who's actually going to go inside the top 7. TJ Parker with Clemson, I don't think that he's going to go that high. Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State, I think undoubtedly one of the top players in this class. David Bailey, the edge out of Texas Tech, would be an interesting match as well. So, if I had to put my money down right now into who would Washington would draft, I'm probably leaning towards the defensive side of the ball.
Where can they really impact starter-wise their team next year in free agency?
Yeah, I think that edge could be a potential option. I think that Jalen Phillips, for example, is going to be a top 5 free agent. I think that Trey Hendrickson is probably someone that Washington has been throwing around as well, although he's an older player. So I haven't done my research on how deep some of these positions are in the free agency class, but I know if Washington doesn't take an edge in the first round, then they would have to look in free agency.
All right. Let's talk Super Bowl, and I'm going to go back to something that we just took calls on for about an hour. The Super Bowl quarterback for the AFC champion Patriots is Drake May. He was selected 1 pick in the 2024 draft, as you know, after our guy, Jaden Daniels, who may have had the greatest rookie season for any quarterback in NFL history. If you were redrafting 2024 and you're on the clock for Washington and Caleb Williams is off the board, who would you take at number 2?
It's recency bias, right? But I think I'd probably lean towards Drake May. With Jaden Daniels, I always knew that he was going to be an explosive playmaker, but I've talked to you several times since they drafted him. I was always concerned about his durability. So after the 2025 season, watching him have struggled with his durability issues and watching Drake May be an MVP candidate, I'm probably leaning towards Drake May. And I was always a little bit biased towards Drake May. My hot take back in the day was that he was going to overtake Caleb Williams as the top quarterback in that draft class. But of course, he didn't have the best final season in Chapel Hill, while Caleb Williams continued to look like this generational prospect. Drake May, as a rookie, showed a little bit of flashes, but man, the headliner is how he improved on his deep ball in year 2. And he did it with a supporting cast that wasn't considered one of the more elite in the NFL, right? Kayshon Boutte, Mac Hollins, Stephon Diggs, of course, looked a lot better than people anticipated coming off the torn ACL. I think Drake May statistically was one of the worst deep ball throwers in the NFL as a rookie, and he turned into one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL in his second season. And that's a big credit to Josh McDaniels. So I like what Drake May presents from the throwing ability, but also he's really mobile as well. That's going to be an X factor on Sunday. So I'm probably leaning a bit towards Drake May at number 2 overall if we were redrafted.
All right, let's talk about the game on Sunday, because New England's obviously not played well offensively, but they've played great defensive teams in the Chargers, Texans, and Denver. And they're going to get another great defensive team, albeit a defensive team that Matt Stafford absolutely shredded in 2 games to the tune of 831 yards, 6 touchdowns, and no picks, and only got sacked 1 time against that defense. Actually, real quickly, I really wanted to see the Rams win that, and I wanted to see Stafford and Sean back in the Super Bowl. When you think about how dominant Seattle's defense was at the end of the year against the 49ers twice, in Week 18 and then in the divisional round of the playoffs, it's kind of amazing what Stafford did against that team in his 2 games against them late December and in the NFC title game, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was with you. I was rooting for the Rams, not only because they were my preseason NFC pick, but Matthew Stafford, it's crazy because he and Drake May are the MVP candidates, the front runners, right? But I don't even think it's a conversation. I think Matthew Stafford undoubtedly is the MVP, leading the NFL in passing yards, passing touchdowns, touchdown-interception ratio. The only other player to lead the NFL in all 3 of those categories was Tom Brady in 2007, which I think was arguably the best year of his entire Hall of Fame career. But, I have a great stat about this Seahawks defense. Since Thanksgiving, back in November, the Seahawks have allowed just 2 touchdowns if we ignore their matchups against the Rams. So against the Vikings, Falcons, Colts, Panthers, 49ers twice, those teams in those games scored just 2 touchdowns, and one was thrown by a grandfather named Phillip Rivers, by the way. Yeah. So this Seahawks defense has been incredible. And, Mike McDonald, he's really he's really shined against some of these younger quarterbacks. Mike Macdonald is 6-0 versus first or second year quarterbacks as the Seahawks head coach, allowing 2 passing touchdowns compared to 9 interceptions in those games. So some of the quarterbacks he's held in check are Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Cam Ward. So I'm interested to see how Drake May fares against what is undoubtedly the best defense in the NFL. And that's why I'm leaning towards the under in this matchup as well.
Yeah, the other on the flip side, Seattle, and I've talked about this for the last week. Seattle really hasn't faced a top-tier defense because the Rams' defense really fell apart, especially on the back end over the last third of the season. Almost half of the season. They haven't faced a really good defense since they faced Minnesota back at the end of November. And they actually didn't do much offensively. It's just that Max Brosmer threw 4 interceptions in the game, and the Vikings offense was terrible. And I think they're going to face the best defensive team they have faced in 2 months on Sunday. And I wonder if Sam Darnold in that scenario reverts to the Sam Darnold that we've seen at times in a big spot against a good defensive team where the ball gets held a bit too long, it gets turned over, or there are a bunch of sacks. What do you think Sam Darnold does against New England's defense Sunday?
It's a good point by you. I mean, this Patriots defense has allowed just 26 points in the playoffs. Those are the fewest points allowed in a team's first 3 playoff games since the 2000 Ravens. So the headliner has been Drake May's play kind of slipping off and the schedule that New England's had in the postseason. But there's no doubt that this Patriots defense has been playing in fantastic fashion. I will say this. Of course, everyone would agree that the game cannot come down to Sam Darnold. It can't be on his shoulders because that's when he can potentially turn into a pumpkin, as we saw last year with the Minnesota Vikings. But here's the thing. Clint Kubiak specializes in taking the pressure off of Sam Darnold because the Seahawks game plan offensively is to rely on your running backs. Kenneth Walker could be a candidate for Super Bowl MVP, whether he's working as a rusher or as a receiver in the passing game as well. George Halani is going to help him carry the rock as well. Jackson Smith and Jigba, one of the best route runners in the NFL, the best wide receiver in the NFL this season, he's going to find a way to get open. So all Sam Darnold has to do is be efficient, get the ball out quickly, and, of course, not create turnovers. So you bring up a good point when it comes to Sam Darnold and the pressure he may be under from this great Patriots unit. But, again, I think that Clint Kubiak really specializes when it comes to taking the pressure off of his quarterback, and that's why he's had the kind of season he's had.
I mean, to me, the way New England should play it is make Sam Darnold beat him. Stop Kenneth Walker, load the box, because the Patriots have been outstanding against the run, in this postseason. I mean, the Texans couldn't run it. The Broncos couldn't run it. The Chargers really couldn't run it. I think the guy Vidal had one decent-sized run. That was it. They banged around Herbert with no offensive line. Look, they had the benefit of obviously playing C.J. Stroud, who decided that he was going to serve up 7 balls in a game, and then a backup quarterback who was terrible in the weather in Denver. But if you're Vrabel, don't you just put this game completely on Darnold and say, Kenneth Walker is not rushing for more than 3 yards per carry in this game?
I would, and I agree. The thing is, I think I have more faith in the Seahawks offense against the Patriots defense than I do in the Patriots offense against the Seahawks defense. You got to score a couple drives to win. I mean, if we zoom out for a second, the key matchup is obviously the Seahawks defense against the Patriots offense. So I'm worried about how Drake May. I'm way more worried about Drake May than I am Sam Darnold, even though Drake May was an MVP candidate and Sam Darnold led the league in turnovers. So I'm interested to see how Drake May fares against this pressure that Seattle's going to bring. I think the X factor for that is probably relying on guys like Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson as receivers in the passing game to combat some of that pressure. So I think you're right when it comes to Mike Vrabel and his defensive game plan to put the game on Darnold. But again, I think it really is going to come down to Josh McDaniels and what he can do offensively against the Seahawks defense.
Jordan, I've gotten a bit hung up on this, but I think if Vrabel had coached the Texans against his own team, the Texans would be in the Super Bowl, because what he did against Denver, which is essentially take the ball out of Drake May's hands and the offense and decide to punt 8 times because he knew Denver couldn't score, that's exactly what DeMeco Ryans should have done with Houston. If they didn't drop back C.J. Stroud in that game, some 50-some times, Houston's in the Super Bowl right now, in my opinion. What do you think?
Isn't it just so sad that we had to watch that Super Bowl caliber defense go to waste with the Houston Texans? I think that
it was the most exciting
defense
defense to watch all year long. In a season of great defensive football teams, Houston's was the best from my standpoint, just watching it.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're 100% right. I would agree with that. I know Seattle finished the regular season with the number 1 scoring defense, but I would pick the Texans defense 10 out of 10 times, to be quite honest with you. But in terms of your theory, dropping C.J. Stroud back 47 times in that game is ridiculous. But I will point out that Houston struggled to get anything going on the ground. I think that relying on the ground game would have led to
punting
nothing.
10 times would have been better than 5 turnovers.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, here's my hot take. In fact, actually, I would have benched C.J. Stroud at halftime. I would have put Davis Mills in the game. I think he can make.
Thinking that.
And I know that's a hot take because people say, why would you crush the confidence of your franchise quarterback? C.J. Stroud has potential. What does this say about 2026? I understand that, but this is do or die in the playoffs. And we can point back to several instances where Davis Mills was more efficient than C.J. Stroud. In fact, he went undefeated as the starter when Stroud exited the lineup due to his concussion. With my season on the line, I'm going to put in the quarterback who is not shell-shocked, and that was Davis Mills. I'll let him drop back 47 times as opposed to C.J. Stroud.
Right. Yeah. It was, that stretch with Mills was pretty good. Now, I think they beat like the Titans and somebody else that wasn't very good
Jaguars,
in the moment. Yeah. Well, the Jags were good. But yeah, the dropping back, throwing 47, he got sacked a bunch of times too. So it was probably 50 plus in terms of called pass plays. And they only punted 5 times. If they punted 10 times in the game, I think they would have won. It's weird the way that game went, but we got New England in it. So against Seattle, it sounds like you're leaning Seattle.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm leaning towards Seattle. And, I will point this out. If you're someone who is kind of hung up on the point spread, 4.5 points is a pretty large number these days in terms of Super Bowl history. Well, I'll point this out. There's only been 7 instances in the Super Bowl era where the underdog lost outright but covered the spread as well. So if you're leaning towards the Patriots, take them on the money line. If you're leaning towards Seattle, take them to cover 4.5 points. I think that this is going to be a low-scoring affair dominated by the defense. I think Drake May, he has not looked very good, like a legitimate MVP contender throughout the postseason. I think that's going to show against this Mike McDonald defense. So I hate to say this to your listeners, but it may not be an entertaining Super Bowl. Give me Seattle minus 4.5, 20-13.
By the way, do you think Stafford is going to win the MVP or not?
I think he is. I think it's a lock right now, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, there's just no doubt who the better quarterback is right now. I'm not saying that the regular season wasn't a phenomenal one for Drake May, but there you couldn't find one general manager for just one season that would take May over Stafford right now with the way he played. For a career, yeah, because Stafford's, 50 years old or whatever he is. And hurt. By the way, do you think Stafford comes back next year?
I do, just because I saw that Sean McVay and the general manager signed extensions this week.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it was a legitimate question. I mean, here's the thing. If the Rams won in the NFC Championship game and won in the Super Bowl, I think that Matthew Stafford could potentially retire atop the NFL world. That would make sense to me. But by all reports coming from Ian Rappaport over the past couple of weeks, Matthew Stafford's made it clear to people in his camp that he still has some tread left on the tires, some gas left in the tank. And after this exit in the postseason and Sean McVay locked up, he's going to give it at least one more year.
Always enjoy it, Jordan. Thank you so much, guys. Follow Jordan. Read. He writes prolifically, like all the time, on CBSSports.com. Not everybody writes as often as you do. I love that you do that. Thanks so much. Enjoy the game, and we'll talk towards, probably free agency or the draft.
I appreciate that, Kev. Thanks so much.
Jordan Dejani, everybody from CBS Sports. The win for Washington because Cliff Kingsbury, more likely than not, is not getting an OC job. I'll explain what I mean when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. So the big win for Washington with Cliff Kingsbury now looking like he's going to be on the outside looking in terms of a job as a coordinator in the NFL. The only vacancies left, Frank Reich just named the offensive coordinator in New York with Aaron Glenn. Matt Nagy is going to New York to coach up John Harbaugh's offense. So the vacancies are the Raiders, where Clint Kubiak is going to be the head coach. That does not seem like a great fit for Kingsbury because that's not the offense that he has called. And then you have vacancies in Chicago, Arizona. He's not going back to Arizona. And with the LA Rams. If Kingsbury doesn't get a job, Marcus Mariota probably stays in Washington. Because I think we all felt that if Kingsbury got a job in a place that had a need for a quarterback or a strong need for a backup quarterback, that Mariota would have gone with him. Mariota and Jaden loved, playing for Kingsbury here in Washington. I read this quote from Ted Nguyen of The Athletic. He wrote, "Cliff has become Greg Roman. Great for a couple of years and a creative run game designer. But ultimately, you hit your ceiling with him and will need someone to take you over the top. Still young enough to change the narrative, though." Look, I think there's a lot that's been discussed about Cliff Kingsbury. I'm not going to get all riled up that I just think is just a complete whiff. What isn't a whiff is that Kingsbury's offense isn't the, focus on under center, play action kind of an attack, a real strong marrying run game with pass game. But obviously it works because they were an elite offensive team last year with kind of subpar personnel other than a quarterback in 2024. And again, all of the numbers from 2025 suggest that he got a lot more out of very little, which he didn't have on the field. He didn't have any of his best players on the field for even, a small minority of the games in the season. But no one's hiring him to be a coordinator. And the opportunities, I thought, were numerous. I think that Baltimore seemed like a good opportunity, and he interviewed over and over again, and they ended up going with Declan Doyle, who was just in Chicago with Ben Johnson. I certainly thought the Giants' opportunity with Jackson Dart would be a good one. They're going with Matt Nagy. And what was the other one that I thought was the good fit? There's another one that I thought really fit him well. I'm forgetting now. But there were opportunities out there. Philadelphia would have been an interesting opportunity for sure. They went with Sean Mannion, a guy who, like David Blau, has been talked about as kind of an up-and-comer, So there you go. I mean, Cliff, more likely than not, will end up being, he'll get hired by somebody in college. If he wants to do it as an offensive consultant, he could sit out this year. He is making head coaching money, still being paid by Arizona. But I think the thing with Cliff is I don't think it's a personality thing. I think Cliff is very well respected and well liked around the league. Players love playing for him. Quarterbacks in particular love playing for him. But it's probably more that teams are just looking at what we had as the trend this year, which was a significant increase in the most successful offensive teams playing a lot more under center than the teams that didn't play a lot under center. And Washington was dead last in the league in under center snaps. Ironically, I think the pace of play thing's a bit overrated from this year's standpoint. The no huddle thing is true, but Washington's pace of play was in the middle of the league. I did think it was interesting for all of those, all of our fans that believe that, one of the reasons Quinn wants to move on is there wasn't enough running of the football, and yet people around the league consider him to be a creative run game designer. I think he's just a creative designer in general. I still, as much as I do like Cliff Kingsbury and would have been fine with Cliff coming back, I still prefer what I think we're going to get with David Blau, which will be much more, whether it's under center or in shotgun or pistol, much more of an intent to marry run with pass, specifically play action pass, which I think will be something that will benefit Jaden significantly. Imagine Jaden as a play action passer off of a zone run scheme. Doesn't even have to be zone run. It can be gap. It can be power, whatever you want it to be. But then you get bootleg. Him out on the edge is a bootleg after you get some run game, and it's truly married together. Under center, preferably more so, but I think that sometimes gets underrated. But yeah, I mean, Cliff's under center percentage this year, the lowest in the NFL. It wasn't close. And I think that unless you've got one of those quarterbacks, Lamar, perhaps whoever they start in New York, Philly, etc., Kansas City, as an example, but in Kansas City, you don't get to call plays, which is, that's why Matt Nagy's leaving, is that Andy Reid calls the plays and you don't have as much input as an offensive coordinator in Kansas City. But yeah, surprised for sure. But the benefit, Mariota stays here. Certainly a better chance that he stays here. And I think that's huge for this team because Marcus Mariota was a top high-end backup quarterback and still, a low-end starter. Here's the one thing, though, right? Marcus Mariota was the best he's been in the pros in Cliff Kingsbury's approach. Much more shotgun, much more RPO involved, more zone read involved in the offense. A lot of quick game for sure. Will, the David Blau system be as good for Mariota? I think Jaden's more versatile. I think he will work in almost any system. And Mariota's probably not, limited to just one scheme. But yeah, Mariota probably increased chance of him staying versus if Cliff had gotten a job somewhere else. There was certainly a chance he was going to take Marcus Mariota with him. All right, let's finish up the show with some Super Bowl trivia. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. 3 questions, easy, kind of hard, very hard, although the easy's not that easy, and the kind of hard's not kind of hard. It's pretty hard, and the very hard is extremely hard. Let's see how well you know your Super Bowl trivia. 301-230-0980. This Sunday, Redfin's kicking off an even bigger game during the big game. They're giving away a $1 million home in an epic, never-been-done-before scavenger hunt, all on the Redfin app. Watch closely the homes hidden in Rocket and Redfin's commercial during the big game. The winner will be the first to solve 6 clues and find the $1 million home on the Redfin app. Download or update the app to play Redfin's Great American Home Search. That's Redfin's Great American Home Search, presented by Rocket. All right, some Super Bowl trivia to finish up the show. 301-230-0980. If you want to take a shot at this, let me just mention that this Sunday, Redfin's kicking off an even bigger game during the big game. They're giving away $1 million home in an epic, never-been-done-before scavenger hunt, all on the Redfin app. Watch closely. The homes hidden in Rocket and Redfin's commercial during the big game. The winner will be the first to solve 6 clues and find the $1 million home on the Redfin app. Download or update the app to play Redfin's Great American Home Search, presented by Rocket. No clues in Super Bowl trivia. You've just got to be stone cold good at this. I'm going to give you an entry-level question, level 1, which isn't going to be super easy. Some might be easy. Then a moderately difficult question, and if you get to the level 3, a very difficult question. We've had 4 winners in 15 years, but we've had winners back-to-back in 2025 and in 2024. The prize for said winner, if it happens this week, is TBD, but worst case, if we don't get you tickets to something, it will be, and I say this with apologies extended, the worst case being you get to come in here and hang out with me and sit in on a show one day of mutual determination. All right, let's go to Cyrus. Cyrus is ready to play some Super Bowl trivia. Cyrus, you've played Super Bowl trivia with me before, right?
I have, and I've played Random Tuesday trivia when you did that with Cooley.
Random Tuesday trivia. I kind of remember that. All right, let's start with something applicable historically to this Super Bowl. We'll start with this. Name the team the Seahawks beat in the NFC Championship game before their first Super Bowl appearance in Super Bowl 40 against the Steelers. You've got 30 seconds. Name the team the Seahawks beat in the NFC Championship game to get to their first Super Bowl, which was Super Bowl 40 against the Steelers.
I am 90% sure it was the Panthers, so I'm going to go with that.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it. It was the Carolina Panthers. Good job, Cyrus. All right, let's go to a level 2 question. And the level 2 question for you is the following. Name the 3 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks who played at Purdue University. 30 seconds. 3 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks played at Purdue. Name them.
Drew Brees.
That's one.
And I'm assuming the rest are before my time. Greasy.
Greasy's 2. You got one more. 3 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks from Purdue University. How much time?
Len Dawson.
Wow. Good job. Well done. We get to a level 3. Max, did you have him on the clock?
I did have him on the clock. He had 3 seconds left.
3 seconds left? You did. I didn't hear you count it down.
I haven't been counting it down. I've been waiting for it to expire. I don't want to put the pressure on him.
All right. We are, of course, talking to Cyrus in Hyattsville, our first contestant today on Super Bowl trivia. And he's gotten to a level 3 question. I think this is kind of diabolical, but here you go. You've got 30 seconds to answer this question. There have been 17 Super Bowls in which a backup quarterback has attempted a pass in a Super Bowl game. I want you to name 6 of them. Go ahead. 6 backup quarterbacks have attempted a pass in a Super Bowl game. 17 have. I need you to name 6 of them. Go.
Do they have to have been the backup? Like
backup for the game. Backup
Bowl?
for the game. Backup for the game.
Backup
Not
for
a
the
backup
game?
like Hostetler who started the game. A backup in the game.
You have 15 seconds already.
Oh man, yeah, that's not. Sorry, because like my
5,
first
4,
yeah
3.
but I would have been
2.
like Nick Foles, Jeff Hostetler, but
That's
they weren't.
really that's okay. You didn't get there, and I can't throw that one back into the hopper unless I'm going to be like name 3 of the 17. It's very interesting about the Super Bowl as I've been going through to try to come up with, level 3 questions that are really hard, but most importantly, can't be looked up immediately because we got burned the last 2 years on questions that were hard, but they were easily Googled and found within 30 seconds. So you have to dig deep to find the one that can't be found with AI help or any other help. But I'm putting that one back on the shelf because it's actually too hard unless I decide to kind of make it easier. All right, let's get one other person in here. We don't have much time. Jim, you ready to play some Super Bowl trivia?
I'm here, Kevin.
All right, let's go a round 1, level 1 question. Seattle's had one regular season MVP in franchise history, and he played in the Super Bowl the year he won the MVP. Name him.
Hasselbeck.
No. Damn. I thought that was a level 1 question. We're out of time, right? Shoot.
Yeah.
Cyrus took us to level 3. I promise tomorrow we'll do more than one short segment. We'll try to get 2 in tomorrow. 2, longer segments. We're done. Chris is next.